Zara, a 15-year-old girl, was a cheerful and lively teenager who walked along a narrow, dusty road to her school in a small town. Her mornings were usually rushed, with her mother packing her bag and urging her to hurry. Despite her busy schedule, Zara always took leftover food with her. For a long time, Zara had noticed a strange man sitting by a broken fence near her school. This man was known in the neighborhood as the madman. People were scared of him and often whispered about him. The villagers said he used to be a respected teacher, but something went wrong in his life, leaving him lost and confused. His real name was forgotten, now they only called him the madman. Unlike everyone else, Zara wasn't scared of him. Instead, she felt sorry for him. Every morning, she quietly gave him a few naira notes or some leftover food. And every day, he would look at her with grateful eyes. Though he couldn't speak much, Zara found comfort in the simple act of kindness. Life wasn't easy for Zara. Her father had died years ago, leaving her mother to take care of her and her younger siblings. They struggled to make a living, and Zara often wore the same old school uniform. But helping the madman felt good. She didn't have much, but she knew he had even less. One morning, as she reached the broken fence, Zara noticed the madman wasn't in his usual spot. She looked around, worried, and was about to continue walking when she saw him standing a little distance away, looking lost. She walked over to him and softly called out, "Uncle, it's me, Zara. I brought you something," holding out some naira notes. The madman looked at her, and for a brief moment, his eyes seemed clear. He opened his mouth as if to speak but only nodded, took the money, and mumbled some words that didn't make sense. Zara gave him a small smile and walked away, but something about their exchange felt strange. As days passed, the madman began waiting closer to her path. He would watch her as she approached and stare at her intensely as she gave him food or money. Zara didn't think much of it at first. But one day, when he took the money, his fingers brushed against her hand, and stayed there a little too long. She quickly pulled her hand away and hurried to school. Suddenly, the madman grabbed her from behind, covering her mouth. He dragged her into a nearby bush where he assaulted her. When he was done, Zara cried, not only because of the pain, being her first time, but also the overwhelming shame. She managed to walk out of the bush, still bleeding, and went into an uncompleted building nearby. There, she cleaned herself up, sat, and cried until she heard the school closing bell. She left for home without telling anyone, not even her mother, what had happened. Soon, Zara started feeling different. She was always tired, felt sick in the mornings, and had a strange feeling in her stomach. She thought it was just stress from school and helping at home, but deep down, a fear began to grow. Her mother noticed the changes, especially how quiet she had become. Concerned, she tried asking if Zara was okay, but Zara only gave vague answers and avoided eye contact. Something was wrong, but she couldn't explain it. Each day, Zara dreaded her walk to school. She even tried taking different routes to avoid the broken fence, but somehow the madman always found her. His intense gaze made her feel trapped, and she started feeling both fear and guilt. She wanted to help him, but his presence now made her uncomfortable, as if he held a secret. One morning, Zara's sickness became too much. She bent over in pain on her way to school. A teacher saw her and took her to the school nurse. After some questions, the nurse looked at Zara with a serious expression and gently asked, "Zara, are you all right? Is there something you want to tell me?" Zara shook her head, avoiding the nurse's eyes. But the nurse wasn't convinced and soon called her mother. When her mother found out Zara was pregnant, she was devastated. That night, her mother's cries filled their small house. Zara sat on the floor, shaking as her mind raced with questions. She couldn't explain what had happened. The memory of the madman's lingering touch flashed in her mind, filling her with a chill. "Zara, who did this to you?" her mother asked, her voice full of pain. But Zara stayed silent. She didn't have an answer, at least, not one she could bear to speak. The thought that it could be the madman was horrifying, yet she couldn't shake it from her mind. News spread through the village, and people whispered about Zara. Her classmates looked at her with pity or disdain. The once cheerful Zara was now weighed down by a reality she couldn't understand. Every day, she walked past the broken fence with a heavy heart. And every day, the madman was there, watching her with those same intense eyes. He never spoke, only stared. Her nights were filled with strange dreams of the broken fence and the madman's face close to hers. She would wake up in fear, her heart pounding, trapped in a web of mystery and dread. After some time, Zara stopped going to school. She could no longer face the stares and whispers from her classmates and teachers. Her body was changing, and the weight of the secret was too much for her young heart to carry. At home, her mother kept asking again and again, "Zara, please tell me, who did this to you?" Her voice broke each time. But Zara stayed silent. She felt trapped, lost, and scared. No words came. No answer she could give. Each time her mother asked, Zara's head would drop, and she would look away, unable to face her mother's tearful eyes. Her silence only deepened her mother's pain. Her mother would sit in their small living room, crying day and night, wondering what had happened to her precious daughter. Sometimes she cried loudly, her sobs filling the small house. Other times she sat quietly, tears streaming down her face as she held Zara's hand, hoping her daughter would finally tell her the truth. The pain in her mother's heart was like a sharp knife. People in the village began to gossip even more. They would whisper to each other whenever they saw Zara or her mother, saying hurtful things that reached Zara's ears and made her feel even worse. At night, Zara would lie in bed, unable to sleep. She would think of the madman, remembering his strange looks and the way he had touched her hand that one time. Fear gripped her heart, haunting her dreams. Her mother tried to stay strong, but each day she looked weaker, as if the weight of Zara's secret was draining the life out of her. She stopped going to the market as much, avoiding the villagers who would stare at her with pity or judgment. Zara knew her mother was suffering, and guilt gnawed at her. But she didn't know how to make it right. One night, as they sat together in their tiny living room, her mother took Zara's hands in hers and said softly, "Zara, I am here for you. No matter what happened, you can tell me. I just want to understand." Zara felt tears fill her eyes, but still, she couldn't bring herself to speak. She didn't have the answers her mother wanted, and the fear inside her was too great. She lowered her head, feeling the weight of her silence pressing down on her like a heavy stone. Days turned into weeks, and the house grew quiet, filled only with the sounds of her mother's quiet weeping at night. Zara knew her mother was praying, hoping for a miracle, for some kind of answer to bring peace to their broken home. One evening, Zara's mother sat beside her daughter, holding her hand gently. She looked into Zara's tired eyes, her own eyes filled with sadness and love. "Zara, please. You can trust me. I am your mother. No matter what. I am here for you," she whispered, her voice soft, yet full of pain. After a long silence, Zara finally looked up, her face wet with tears. She took a deep, shaky breath and whispered, "Mama, it was the madman. The one by the school fence." Zara's mother froze, her hand gripping Zara's tighter. Shock filled her face as she struggled to understand what her daughter had just said. "The madman," she repeated, her voice trembling. "The one everyone calls crazy." Zara nodded slowly, her eyes full of fear and guilt. Her mother's heart shattered as she realized the horror her daughter must have gone through. How could this happen? How could her sweet, innocent child be hurt in such a way? Without another word, Zara's mother stood up, her face set in anger and determination. She couldn't stay silent. She couldn't let this go. She had to confront the man who had done this to her daughter. She wrapped a shawl around her shoulders, her eyes blazing with fury, and headed straight for the broken fence where the madman always sat. As she marched down the dusty path, people turned to stare, sensing her anger. Some villagers followed her, curious about where she was going and why. They whispered to each other, wondering what had happened to make her so furious. But Zara's mother didn't care about them. Her mind was focused on one thing only, the madman. When she reached the broken fence, she saw him sitting there, mumbling to himself and staring off into the distance. Her anger boiled over. She stepped forward, pointing a finger at him. "What did you do to my daughter, you wicked man?" she shouted, her voice loud and filled with rage. "What did you do to my Zara?" The madman slowly turned his head to look at her, a strange smile spreading across his face. Instead of answering her, he began to laugh, a low, chilling laugh that sent shivers down her spine. His laugh grew louder, echoing in the stillness around them. The villagers watching from a distance gasped, some covering their mouths in shock. "Why are you laughing?" Zara's mother demanded, her face filled with anger and disgust. "Do you think this is funny? Do you understand what you've done?" But the madman only kept laughing, his eyes wild and empty as if he didn't understand her words at all. He rocked back and forth, his laughter rising and falling like waves. The sound was eerie, almost haunting, as if he were lost in his own world, far from reality. Zara's mother's face crumpled as she watched him. She didn't see regret or guilt in his eyes, only madness. A strange emptiness that made her heart ache. She wanted to scream, to hit him, to make him understand the pain he had caused. But looking at him, she felt helpless. A few villagers stepped forward, whispering to Zara's mother, trying to calm her down. "Please, be careful," one woman said softly, putting a hand on her shoulder. "He's not well in the head. He doesn't understand." But Zara's mother shook her head, her anger still burning. "How can he not understand?" she cried. "He hurt my child, my innocent daughter." Her voice broke with emotion. The madman's laughter slowly faded. He looked at her with a strange expression, as if he were seeing her for the first time. He tilted his head, muttered something under his breath, and then began to laugh again, a softer, more chilling laugh. It was as if he didn't even remember what he had done, or worse, didn't care about the pain he had caused. Tears filled Zara's mother's eyes as she took a step back, feeling defeated. She wanted answers, she wanted justice, but all she found was a man lost in madness, a man who couldn't give her the peace she sought. The villagers around her shook their heads, murmuring words of pity and sadness. "Maybe it's best to let him be," an old man said quietly. "He's not well. No one can reach him now." But Zara's mother shook her head, her heart aching. How could she let this go? How could she ever move on, knowing that the man who hurt her daughter was sitting there, laughing as if nothing had happened? She looked around, seeing the pity in the villagers' eyes, and felt a deep sense of loneliness. No one could understand her pain, her anger, or her helplessness. Finally, with a heavy heart, she turned and began to walk away, her shoulders slumped. The villagers slowly moved aside, letting her pass, their eyes full of sympathy. They knew the pain she was carrying, but no one had the words to comfort her. As she walked back home, her thoughts swirled with anger, sadness, and a sense of defeat. She couldn't get the madman's laughter out of her head. It echoed in her mind, haunting her with its emptiness and cruelty. How could he laugh after what he had done? How could he seem so untouched by the pain he had caused? When she reached home, Zara was waiting for her, looking anxious. Her mother's face was pale, her eyes red from crying, and Zara knew her mother had found no answers, no justice. They sat together in silence, each lost in their own thoughts, both feeling the heavy weight of the truth. As the days passed, the villagers continued to talk about Zara and her mother. Some felt sorry for them, while others whispered rumors, casting doubt and judgment. But no one truly knew the pain that filled their small home, the silent tears that fell each night as they both lay awake, haunted by what had happened. Zara's mother grew quieter each day, her spirit broken. Her once strong heart was now filled with sorrow. It felt as if the whole world had turned against her, leaving her and her daughter to bear this pain alone. Zara, too, felt the weight of shame, guilt, and confusion, her young heart burdened with emotions too heavy to carry. And so they continued to live in silence. Each day felt longer than the last, each night filled with whispers of unanswered questions. As the weeks went by, Zara's belly began to grow. Her clothes no longer fit, and the signs of her pregnancy became clear for everyone to see. The villagers began to notice, and soon the whispers turned into loud gossip. Whenever Zara's mother went to the market, people would point and talk behind her back. They said hurtful things, calling Zara and her mother shameful names. "Look at that girl," they would say. "What kind of mother lets this happen?" Their words pierced her mother's heart. She tried to ignore them, but the pain was too strong. Every day she returned home with tears in her eyes, broken by the cruelty of the neighbors. Zara felt her mother's sadness, and it only deepened her own shame. Eventually, Zara stopped going outside altogether. She stayed indoors, sitting by the window, watching the world pass by. She missed school. She missed her friends. But she was too ashamed to face anyone. Her days became long and lonely, with only her mother for company. One evening, as they sat together, Zara looked at her mother and whispered, "Mama, I'm sorry." Her mother reached out and held her hand, her own eyes filling with tears. "It's not your fault, my child," she replied gently, though her voice shook with sorrow. "We will get through this, somehow." But even as she said the words, Zara's mother didn't know how. The shame, the mocking, and the loneliness weighed heavily on them both. As the months passed, Zara's belly grew bigger, and the villagers' cruelty grew with it. The insults became bolder. The laughter was louder. They no longer whispered, they shouted. The shame they poured upon them was heavy, crushing. Zara stayed hidden indoors. Each time she even thought of going outside, her heart raced with fear. Her mother tried to be her strength, but she was beginning to crumble too. She had once been a proud woman, raising her children alone after her husband passed away. But now that pride is gone. One afternoon, Zara watched a group of children play outside. She remembered the time when she was like them, carefree. But that time felt like a lifetime ago. She felt like a ghost watching a world that had moved on without her. Her mother sat beside her and gently said, "Don't worry, Zara. This will pass. People will forget." But Zara knew they wouldn't. The villagers held on to gossip like treasure. She would always be the girl who brought shame. Still, the days moved forward. Slowly. Painfully. And eventually, Zara gave birth. The child came quietly one night, with only her mother by her side. A baby girl, small, innocent, unaware of the world she was born into. As Zara's mother held her daughter in her arms, she felt a rush of something she hadn't felt in a long time, love. Not the confused kind. Not the kind tied to shame or pain. But a pure, fierce love. A love that gave her strength. Her mother looked at her with tears in her eyes. "She is beautiful," she said softly. Zara nodded. "She deserves better than this." And in that moment, they made a silent promise, to raise the child with love, to shield her from the cruelty of the world, and to find healing, no matter how long it took. The villagers' whispers never truly stopped. But over time, they quieted. New gossip came. New stories spread. And the fire of judgment began to fade. Zara and her mother, though forever changed, began to heal. Slowly, gently, with each passing day. They learned to live again, not as victims, but as survivors. And while the past could never be erased, it no longer held them hostage. Their story ends not with laughter or shame, but with resilience and love. What has Zara's story taught you? Don't forget to share in the comment section. Thank you for watching. Please like, comment, and subscribe for more inspiring stories.